welcome back to my channel. Now today's video is a little bit different because we are doing an old-fashioned Q&A style video. Now back on my Instagram I put out a question box asking for people's questions because it has been a year since I moved into this house. I moved in 5 days before Christmas last year, which also happened to be my birthday, which is actually a great day to move in because you will never ever forget your move-in date. But would I recommend moving 5 days before Christmas? Probably not. That's just my experience. But to coincide with that, I thought I'd put out that question box just to see what questions people have. Because I do often see comments on different videos asking about the house buying process, asking how I did it, because I bought this house on my own. And that is hard to do. I think it's hard to buy a house with two people in this country. Like, the house buying process is not easy. House prices are like up here and wages are like way down here. So I appreciate that for anyone to purchase is an achievement. So yeah, just wanted to do this little Q&A just to hopefully shed some light on my experience and just, you know, share the details. I'm a nosy person. I love finding this stuff out from other people. So hopefully some of you will also appreciate this too. So let's kick off with the first question. And the first question is, how long did the process take? It took a really long time. I don't understand. I watch all these kind of property shows on Netflix like Selling Sunset, etc. And they can just buy and close on a house in like 2 weeks. In the UK, our process takes months and months and months. It just takes so long. So I had a property to sell. I originally got on the property ladder when I was 30. For reference, I'm now 38. And I bought a flat, and I thought with that flat that this was going to be my 2-year home. This wasn't going to be somewhere that I would stay for a very long time. 2 years turned into 6 years. I did buy that flat on my own. Like, that was kind of like my first entry point. That was all I could afford at the time. I could only afford to buy a flat. Did I want to buy a flat? No, I would have preferred to have bought a 2-bed house, but that wasn't an option. I only had the funds for a 2-bed flat, so that's what I ended up buying. As I said, I bought that flat thinking I'd be there for 2 years. I was there for 6. COVID did happen in the middle, so, you know, we kind of take 2 years out for that, right? And then I changed jobs a couple of times, and because I didn't have that kind of stability in the form of, you know, I'd been in a role for, you know, 12, 18, 24 months, that meant that I couldn't borrow too much until I had a bit more stability in my role. So after I'd been in my current job for 6 months, I decided I'm just going to put the flat on the market now. I've been waiting too long. I just want to get moving. I'd felt like I'd outgrown the flat. It was starting to annoy me where I lived, which I don't think is ever a good position to be in. So rather impulsively, and I am a very impulsive person, I decided to just randomly on a May day put my flat on the market. And within like 2 weeks, it had been photographed. It was on Rightmove. I'd signed the paperwork. And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to move. I'm just going to move. Like, why not? I want to get out of this place. I've got enough stability now in my current role to be able to kind of get the mortgage that I need. My current mortgage was due up for expiry in February anyway. So I thought this could be a good time. Like, I can let that mortgage end. I can hopefully kind of time it so that I move in somewhere with a brand new mortgage, won't have to pay any exit fees, etc. And yeah, just rather impulsively put the flat on the market. So yeah, that was in the May. In the June, I then accepted an offer on my flat. But I didn't have anywhere to live. I'd been looking at houses, but nothing really ticked the boxes. The budget that I had wasn't as big as I hoped it was going to be. And I just found myself in a position where I was looking at 2-bed homes that were probably slightly smaller than the 2-bed flat that I was selling. You know, yes, I would be gaining a garden, and yes, I would be gaining, you know, a bit of like a driveway, but I wasn't really gaining anything else in terms of space. So I kept looking, but it got to August, and, you know, the flat process is kind of going along. Although, let me tell you, when you sell a leasehold property, it takes a really, really, really long time. But yeah, it got to August and I still didn't really know what I was going to do. I didn't really have a plan. I had a very loose plan, which was that I was potentially going to shove all my stuff into storage and temporarily move back in with my mum and my stepdad while I found kind of what I wanted, or used it potentially as an opportunity to save like a little bit more money. to eventually get what I wanted. Because I knew in my head that it didn't really make much sense to go from a 2-bed flat to a 2-bed house. I knew that if I could, I wanted to stretch myself for a 3-bed house. But I also knew that in the areas I was looking at, that was not in the budget. But then randomly one night I was just on Rightmove, and a property that I hadn't seen before had just suddenly popped up on to Rightmove, and it was a new build, which I really like a new build, that had just come back on the market. And I put in an inquiry that night, thought, oh, maybe I could make the numbers work. Maybe, probably not, but like, you know, we'll just see if we can make it work. And then the next day I spoke to the house builder, who told me that the house had fallen through twice with the initial buyer of that property. It was completely done. It was ready to move into. Nobody else had lived in it. So although I was buying a new build, it wasn't actually an opportunity to be able to kind of customize anything that I think is some of the fun parts of buying a new build. But it did mean that they wanted a very quick kind of close. And because I was already, by that point, like 2 months into my selling journey of my flat, I went to go view it. And honestly, that moment of kind of walking in and being like, this is it, this is my home, happened. And it hadn't happened with any of the other properties that I'd seen. You know, all of them were nice. You know, I could see myself living there, but I didn't feel that that was my home, if that makes sense. It was, yeah, I can make this work, and, you know, yeah, my couch would fit here and the bedroom's big enough for my bed, but it didn't feel like it was going to be my home. It just felt like, yeah, I could live there. But this house, the moment I walked in, I was like, no, this is it. This is the one. Like, when they say that you'll know when you know, like, I just knew this was it. So I saw that in the August. I, within a week, said, yes, I want it. And I put down my reservation fee, which meant that the house was going to be mine. By about the October, they were hoping that we could exchange, but my flat was nowhere near ready. We had to do a deed of variation change. That was done by that was a request by the buyer's mortgage company, that they needed to have a deed of variation done on the ground rent because they weren't happy with what was currently in the lease. So that had to be done, and that took so long and cost me an extra £3,500 for the privilege of being able to sell something because my buyer's mortgage provider needed it. Now, that was not a fun experience, and that was definitely a lesson that when you are selling or when you're purchasing a home, be prepared for all unaccounted for costs, because you did not realize how expensive it is. I'll get onto costs in a second, but yes, so by the October, they wanted us to exchange. We weren't ready to exchange, kind of put it off. And then they finally gave me an ultimatum that meant that if we didn't complete before the end of December, they would be putting the house back on the market and I would potentially lose the house. So managed to make it work with my buyers, managed to make it work with my solicitors, that we ended up exchanging at the start of December, and we completed on the 20th of December. So the whole process took from May to December, which might not sound like a long time, might sound like a long time to other people, but it felt incredibly long. It was very stressful. And the thought that at some point I might not even get the house that I want, it was horrible to think that I wouldn't get it. But yeah, I'm not planning on moving anytime soon because I'm not in a rush to experience that whole process all over again. So next up, I will talk about cost, because quite a lot of people were asking what the whole kind of cost process is and how much does it actually cost to buy and to sell. And it's very different. Obviously, when I was a first-time buyer, I only had to worry about my kind of buying costs. So the deposit that I needed for the flat, the fees that I needed to pay to the solicitor, and the stamp duty that I had to pay, because back when I bought my flat, there was no first-time buyer pays zero stamp duty. It was no, everybody pays stamp duty. So I had to pay stamp duty the first time. But when you're actually selling and then buying, you have also selling fees. So my selling fees included $3,600 to the estate agent. That was to sell and to take care of all the kind of selling side of the flat, which was a flat rate. Actually, they did a flat rate for flats. But I don't know what the rate is if you're obviously selling a house. I think it's meant to be around about 1 to 2%, but obviously it's costs that you have to account for. I also had my fees for my solicitor for selling my flat, and those fees came to £1,500. So that was to sell. Also, because I was buying a new build and they were pushing me to complete before December, it meant that I had to pay an early exit fee on my mortgage, which was due to expire in February. That was £3,000 that, again, wasn't expecting, because I was hoping to kind of tie it in so that I would be able to kind of just finish one mortgage and then go straight into the other mortgage. So that early redemption fee was £3,000 on my mortgage, which again, just had to pay. As I already mentioned, there was a deed of variation needed on my flat, which again cost me another £3,500. So yeah, just to sell my flat was a lot of money. So in total, to sell my flat, it cost me £11,600, which, yeah, so much money, but I had to suck it up because I wanted to buy this place. So now, if we're talking about the cost of buying this place, so this house was up for £370,000. Now, as part of that, the house builder offered a deposit contribution, and that deposit contribution was 5%, which was £18,500. So that meant that I needed £351,500 to purchase this property. Now, the way that I did that is through £300,000 in mortgage and £51,500 in deposit. Now, that deposit was built through the equity of my flat. So I had equity in my flat. As I said, I'd been there 6 years. So I'd built up equity over time by obviously paying down my mortgage, and I'd also been overpaying my mortgage. So I had some money in the flat. Now, I also needed to, out of the flat, take out those fees for selling. So my deposit was slightly less, but luckily I was able to get a mortgage that was up to £300,000, which the mortgage is just on me. As I say, I live here myself. It's only myself on the mortgage. There is no other person on the mortgage. So that mortgage was done just through my salary alone, which is a huge stretch. I'm not going to lie. My mortgage feels to be massive. It's double what my old mortgage was. But I knew I really wanted this house, and that was the only way to do it. So in terms of the fees for buying, I had stamp duty to pay. So that was £6,000 stamp duty. And I also had my solicitor fees of £2,000 to buy. So I had £8,000 in fees alongside a deposit that needed to be £51,500. So all in all, it was just under 60 grand that I needed to have raised to be able to purchase this property to go alongside my mortgage. So yeah, it was a lot of money to sell and a lot of money to buy. So what I will say to anybody in the process of, buying a property, either as a first time buyer or selling a property to buy another property, if you think you've got enough money saved, you really don't. You really don't, because there are so many unexpected costs. If you're a first time buyer and you move in somewhere, you'll need furniture, and furniture is expensive. Obviously for me, I moved into a new build. I didn't have to pay for flooring because that was already done, which was great. I didn't have to pay for the turf. Again, great, because that's like an additional cost that maybe you don't always factor in. Did though need to have something for the windows in terms of either blinds or curtains, because I moved in December. I felt like a little fish in a goldfish bowl because it's dark outside and my lights are on and everyone can look in and see me. So I went for shutters. So that again was an added expense. Buying a new build, it came with no storage. I had to pay to get this done and to get wardrobes put in. And again, that's just like additional costs. So yeah, the cost of buying a home is like, there's no upper limit. It feels like it doesn't matter how much you have saved, you always need more. And I would say, no, I don't. I know that new builds don't always get the best rep. I personally love the fact that everything is new. I love the fact that everything is done. Obviously, bought this on my own. I'm not really a DIY person. So buying an older property that would need work doing to it just wasn't going to fit with my lifestyle, because I'm not somebody who can do that. I'm not somebody who is very handy. I don't particularly enjoy DIY. So that would never have worked, because I just would have had to spend more money getting stuff fixed by professionals, and it would have been money that I just didn't really have. So buying a new build for me kind of provided a little bit of security of the fact that kind of everything's done, and also it's under a 2-year warranty. So I had a leak, for example, on Easter Sunday from the ensuite going into the living room. I just called up the house builder and they sent around an emergency plumber. The emergency plumber came around, I think within like 2-3 hours, had, looked at what the issue was, fixed the issue so that I didn't have a leak. He did obviously cut a hole in the ceiling to try and find out where the leak was coming from. But he then fixed it. We tested it. It was all fine. Within like 2-3 days, once the site had reopened, 2 guys around here plastering the hole that had been left in my ceiling. And then a week later, they painted it. And, that I just had to give a phone call for that. It obviously, if I hadn't bought a new build and I had a leak on Easter Sunday, that would be a cost to me, to an emergency plumber, to then have to get a plaster around, to then have to get it repainted, etc. So stuff like that is why I think buying a new build is beneficial, because if anything goes wrong within the first 2 years, you're basically covered, and you just call the house builder and they send someone round to fix it. And I know house builders get a really bad rep, but actually the one that I've purchased from, I can't fault them. They are really good. And for anyone who wants to know, the house builder is actually Taylor Wimpey, and I've had a great experience with them. Any issue, I've just logged it on the system or I've called them up. Every issue's been fixed. It's always been fixed in a really kind of timely manner. Nothing has taken too long. Nothing has really dragged out. So yeah, I know they always get bad reps because you always hear the kind of horror stories. I don't have a horror story though. My experience has been really good. The next question is, how have you found the buying process as a single buyer versus if you were to buy with somebody else? Now, I've never bought with anyone else. I've only ever bought on my own, so I can only give that experience. And what I will say is that it's really hard buying on your own, not only from the financial side. I mean, it's hard if you're buying with somebody else anyway, because even with 2 salaries, I still think, the house prices versus wages are so far apart. But buying on your own is really hard because financially everything is on you. My mortgage is huge and I'm the only one who pays it. I don't pay half of it and then share it with somebody else. I have to pay all of it. Also, just all the legal stuff that you do beforehand, it's all on you to do. Yes, I had help from, my mum and my stepdad and my dad and my stepmom in terms of helping me with kind of what the next steps would be, or helping with some of the paperwork that I needed to do. But honestly, it's also all on you. So, when they've got a question, they're coming straight to you. When you've got a question, you're the one having to kind of go back to them. It's not a case of you're kind of splitting that workload with somebody else. It is all on you, and it's a complex process. And although I've done it before, I'd completely forgotten the first time what happened at each step. And yeah, it's just a lot of chasing. It's a lot of being on the phone. It's a lot of emailing. It's a lot of reading documents. It's a lot of providing answers. And that's just a lot when you're doing it all on your own. But in terms of the positives of obviously doing it on your own, the positive is that fact that I get to live here on my own. I'm not living here with somebody else. I really enjoy living on my own. I obviously lived in my flat for 6 years on my own. I've been here now for a year as well. And I just love my own space. I love living on my own. And I know a lot of people might think, oh, it must be really lonely. I'm never lonely. There will be people who will come around. There'll be people who will come around to stay. My friends will stay, etc. And it's almost the next morning, I'm like, when are you going to leave? When do I get to have my space back? So I really love it. I also really love the freedom to just decorate completely how I want to and have my house completely suit my needs without having to kind of compromise on different things, whether it's, colour of wardrobes. I don't think everybody would want to have pink wardrobes. I did, so I got them. That's probably one of the biggest kind of benefits. But yeah, obviously buying with somebody else would be nice financially, in terms of being able to split everything. And also obviously being able to potentially go for a bigger property, because, my salary literally stretched to get this 3-bed house, whereas actually being able to buy with somebody else, I could possibly be looking at, a 4-bed house. But I can't complain because I'm very grateful to be here, and I absolutely love my little 3-bed property. Okay, and then the final question I'm going to answer is this your forever home? That's a really interesting question. And part of me thinks, absolutely, I could see myself living here for a very long time. I don't know if it would be forever, but it would definitely be a very long time. This is a 3-bed detached property. I love the size of the property. I love the size of the garden. I love the neighbors. I love the location. So absolutely, do I feel like I could live here for a really long time? Yes, because I feel like there's a lot I could do to this house. Obviously, the garden's kind of like the next biggest project for me. I've done some interior stuff. I've done the wardrobes in this bedroom, which is like the 3rd bedroom. So it's a bit of an office / dressing room. And then I've done the wardrobes in my main bedroom. The 2nd bedroom I've not really touched, and I haven't touched anything downstairs. So I feel like there's still little projects where I can kind of add some value to the property and I can add my own stamp to it as well. I will be able to decorate from next year. So when you buy a new build, they say to kind of wait 2 years for the house to kind of fully air out, I guess. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of start decorating probably year after next in terms of paint and wallpaper, etc. So yeah, very excited with kind of how much I've still got to do within the property. But then the other part of me is thinking, will I outgrow this house? Because as much as it's great for one person, I don't think this is a great size for me anyway to have somebody else living here, because I've filled everything. Like, there is no space for anyone to come live with me. Like, if someone wanted to move in, they could probably just bring an overnight case and that would be it. There'd be no other room. I can maybe clear a drawer, but that's it. There's no wardrobe space left. There's like no other space. So if I was to live with somebody, I think this house would become too small too quickly. So would need to kind of move just for more space. But I took out a 5-year mortgage for this property, or I'm fixed for 5 years. Sorry, it's not a 5-year mortgage. It's a lot longer than 5 years, but I'm fixed for 5 years. And obviously I've done 1 year of that. So I'm definitely here for another 4 years because I don't really want to get burned by another exit fee of trying to leave this property to go buy another property, because those exit fees and redemption fees they're a lot of money. So yes, for now, this is my forever home, but never say never. So I hope this video has been useful. Obviously, if you've got any other questions about the process, feel free to kind of drop them below and I'll reply to all your comments there. But thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and all that good stuff. And I'll see you soon. Bye.